Hi everyone, meteorologist Brian Bennett. This video is being created late Saturday evening with all the information you need to know about what's going to happen across Florida as Hurricane Irma treks across the state on Sunday. All right, the winds as of the 11 p.m. advisory were at 120 miles per hour, moving to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. Here's the latest Hurricane Center track. The track has shifted about 5, maybe 10 more miles farther to the west than what we had earlier today. We are looking at a landfall to occur right around 8 p.m. That's when the center of circulation will move on shore. Again, right around 8 p.m., somewhere between Fort Myers and Venice, Florida. And then the center of circulation moving right over Tampa Bay, and then perhaps even dipping into the Gulf just a tiny bit as the storm moves off to the northwest and then rapidly diminishes. Check out the orange color here. This is where tropical storm force winds extend to. So as the storm moves off to the north, everybody in Florida is going to experience tropical storm force winds between 39 and 73 miles per hour. The kind of brownish color here, this is the wind field for hurricane force winds that are greater than 74 miles per hour. So as the storm moves off to the north, that's going to encompass a lot of the west coast of Florida, even into central Florida, where we're going to see hurricane force winds as the storm goes off to the north. All right, here's a look at the satellite imagery in motion, and you can see that again it has begun that northwesterly motion very slowly and is going to travel this direction all night and through the day on Sunday, skirting the west coast of Florida. You can see that we're actually going through a bit of an eye wall cycle replacement. The outer eye wall right now is kind of taking control, so the storm is actually showing signs that it could strengthen just a little bit before it makes landfall again in southwest Florida, somewhere between Fort Myers and the Venice area. All the hurricane tracks pretty much in agreement that the storm will be making that track up the west coast of Florida and then up through Valdosta, Georgia, and into Alabama, where the storm will diminish. The intensity could grow just a little bit. Again, the winds are 120, so we could see the winds increase perhaps to about 130. So we're dealing with a strong Cat 3 or at most a weak Cat 4 as the storm makes landfall on your Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening, and then the storm will slowly weaken as it moves over the friction of the land in Florida. All right, what about winds? This is a really important graphic here. A lot of folks just want to know how much wind, how much rain, how much storm surge, and I can answer those three questions over the next 5 minutes or so, or less. All right, so as the storm moves on shore, here we are. This is Naples right here. This is Fort Myers. This is Cape Coral. So in that area, including Sanibel Island, we're going to see winds in this kind of reddish color here. That is a wind gust, a maximum wind of about 110 to about 125 miles per hour. So again, winds possibly up to 125 miles per hour for Naples, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, Sanibel area, even perhaps as far north as Port Charlotte area. As the storm continues to go off to the north into Manatee, Sarasota County, Hardy, DeSoto counties, we're going to see winds kind of in the lighter shade of red here. So we're going to see a maximum wind gust of about 105 miles per hour or so in this general vicinity in the southern part of Tampa Bay. As the storm continues to move north, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Anna Maria Island, Brandon, Plant City, you're looking at a maximum wind between about 95 and about 100 or so miles per hour possible in this area right along Interstate 4. So that would be the maximum wind. Again, 95 to 100 miles per hour can't be ruled out for this area right through Tampa Bay. The storm continues north into Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, Sumter counties, and even over into Orlando. In that location, we can expect a maximum wind gust of about 92 to 95 miles per hour. As the storm continues north into Levy County and up the spine of the state into northern Florida up to I-10, we can expect a maximum wind gust of right around 80 to 85 miles per hour. That does include Gainesville and Ocala as well. So very strong winds for a very large portion of the state as the storm moves off to the north. All right, so everybody wants to know the timing as well. Let me show you this graphic right here first. This will show you when the tropical storm force winds will begin. So early Sunday morning, the tropical storm force winds between 39 and 73 miles per hour will begin anywhere from about Sarasota, Florida to almost Cape Canaveral area. By 2 p.m., we'll see tropical storm force winds blowing right around the Ocala and Gainesville area, and then by 8 p.m. Sunday, tropical storm force winds have moved into the Georgia area. So that's when the tropical storm force winds will begin. As far as the storm in earnest, if you're in Fort Myers, Naples, Cape Coral, Immokalee, anywhere in that general vicinity, you can expect the storm to really begin in earnest right around 12 p.m. on your Sunday, and then last until about 5 p.m. or so. So roughly 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday will be the worst conditions for Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Immokalee, Naples, Sanibel Island, and that vicinity there. All right, if you live in Manatee, Sarasota counties, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, the worst conditions will be roughly about, I'd say, 2 p.m. on your Sunday, roughly 2 p.m. to about 2 p.m. to about 8 p.m. would be the worst conditions for this general vicinity, basically south of I-4 and north of the Fort Myers area. If you live in St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Tampa, Lakeland, Brandon, all the way over to the Cape, the worst conditions in your vicinity would be roughly about 6 p.m. on your Sunday evening and going into the post-sunset time period, so roughly about 1 a.m., so about 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. for the I-4 quarter. That does include, again, the big cities of St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, Brandon, heading over to the Cape as well, and that's when we can expect the worst conditions in that vicinity. And then as you head north through Pasco County, Hernando County, even over into Orlando, Citrus County, you can expect the worst conditions to begin right around 8 p.m. on your Sunday evening, and then lasting until about 5 or 6 a.m. on the morning on early Sunday morning. And then the storm just kind of weakens and isn't as much of a factor as it moves off to the north. So hopefully what I've just shown you answers when the conditions will begin, kind of when you can expect the worst conditions from the storm. Let's see, I haven't shown you rainfall yet. So this is how much rain on average we can expect. And on average across the state of Florida, we're going to see between about 8 inches and a foot of rain on average. There will be a few isolated locations, especially on the right quadrant of the storm, east of the eye, where we could see potentially 15 to 20 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain to fall on one day. So some freshwater flooding is going to occur, not to the extent, again, of what we saw in Houston, but some roadways will definitely see some ponding. So please use caution if you have to be out on area roads tomorrow. All right, so I've shown you the timing, I've shown you the rain, and I've shown you the wind as well. So I think the next thing to show here would be the storm surge, and this is I hope this is getting the publicity across the news channels and social media channels as well, as storm surge is going to be really major across much of Florida, and that's where you're going to see some just sad but amazing video of water coming on shore and going into buildings and homes, and this is going to have the potential to cause a lot of damage. So as the storm scrapes up the west coast of Florida, unfortunately we are looking at a little bit worse storm surge than we were originally when it was on the east coast of Florida. That's all because we're going to have a bit of an onshore wind that's going to be stronger than what was originally anticipated. But this is what we can expect as we move through the day on Sunday as far as storm surge goes. Let me zoom out a tad to get that to kind of fill in for you. And one more time. Actually, you know what? I think they're doing an update, which is great because that means that we get the latest information here. All right, that's good. So getting the latest information. This graphic is called an inundation graphic, and this is from the National Hurricane Center. And again, you saw it right here. This is the very latest information that just came out. And again, these colors here, the blue represents an inundation of 1 foot. Yellow is a 3-foot inundation. And the red is a 9-foot or greater inundation. And again, what inundation is, that is water that is coming on land that is normally dry. So for example, where you see the yellow color here, that would be 3 feet of water on an area that is normally dry. So that does include, unfortunately, where people live, where businesses are. So we're going to see a lot of places flooded as the storm moves on shore, and kind of the ground zero for the worst storm surge flooding is going to be in Fort Myers and Cape Coral and Naples area. So again, looking at the Naples area, the red color here, this represents an inundation of about 9 feet. So much of Naples, looking at the possibility of water moving onshore that could be as deep as 9 feet in an area that is normally dry. So not good news for Naples. A lot of really wonderful homes down in that area are going to experience some major flooding, especially right along the coastline. Same thing goes, you head up through Bonita Springs, and here we are. Check this out. This is Fort Myers Beach. The entire little island of Fort Myers Beach is covered in red. That means that we're probably going to see water come from the Gulf of Mexico and go completely across the island. So every business and every home on the little island of Fort Myers Beach has a potential to succumb to some sort of storm surge flooding. So that is not good news. That's not news I like to deliver, but that is what the National Hurricane Center is calling for right now. Here's Fort Myers here, the downtown area. Most of it should escape the worst flooding, but as you head more towards the beach, the Iona area, Gladiolus, McGregor, and other major roads, you're going to see some really some big inundation. Again, all the red color here is 9-foot inundation. Here's Sanibel Island. Again, same thing. Much of Sanibel, a lot of really cute, wonderful homes on Sanibel and up to Captiva. We're looking at major inundation on the order of about 6 to 9 feet for this location. So it's going to take a long time for this area to recover after the water from the Gulf of Mexico decides to move onshore. This is important to mention as well. You see the channel here between Fort Myers and Cape Coral. That's going to take flooding pretty far inland. So areas that are even maybe 35 miles inland on the very northern part of Lehigh Acres could experience some sort of storm surge flooding with that water being funneled in. One of the areas that I'm most concerned about across the entire state of Florida is Cape Coral. Cape Coral has those cute little canals that run all between the homes and allow easy access to the Gulf of Mexico, but that also allows easy access for water from the Gulf of Mexico. So a lot of homes in the Cape Coral area are going to flood with a possibility of up to 9-foot inundation. The orange color here, that represents 6-foot inundation. Yellow is 3 feet and 1-foot inundation in very northern Cape Coral. So just about all of Cape Coral underwater. Again, I know that Cape Coral is a big retirement community. So if you're watching this from out of town, yes, there's a possibility that some of the homes, perhaps that are not, don't have residents in them right now, will be flooded. So you might want to check on these storms. Also, please check on the elderly. When it came to Hurricane Katrina, there were a lot of casualties with Katrina. As you know, it was a little bit different scenario, so we're not going to compare apples to oranges, but a large number of the fatalities in Katrina were elderly people. I know that a lot of folks retire to Cape Coral, and perhaps some folks are resistant to leave that area. And if you know of anybody like that, please get them to leave the Cape Coral area. I don't want to hear about anybody getting stuck in this storm surge that is likely to happen in the Cape Coral area. All right, as we go north towards Port Charlotte, we're looking at The orange color here, which is about a 6-foot inundation. The same thing goes on the Barrier Island just west of Port Charlotte and heading up the coast, heading towards parts of the very popular beaches of Tampa Bay. Here we are looking at Lido Key up through parts of Anna Maria Island and some of the Bradenton beaches. Well, notice that we're looking at yellow color here covering the entire island. So it's possible that the water could actually cross the entire island or the Barrier Island as well. So Longboat Key and Cortez and Holmes Beach and Anna Maria Island, you're looking at a strong possibility for much of the island succumbing to some sort of inundation. Downtown Sarasota, for the most part, should be okay, but the immediate coastline right here, east of the Barrier Island, right before you get to the mainland, will have the possibility for some inundation, especially around the Bayshore Gardens area. Surprisingly, not much of a surge for the Alafaya River area. As you head inland, the Manatee River area as you head inland. So very minor flooding if you live along the Manatee River. Heading north as we head towards Palmview and west of Gillette on the southeastern part of the bay, we're looking at somewhat minor storm surge flooding, anywhere from about 1 foot to 3 foot inundation, especially in some of the wetland and lower lying areas. Ruskin could see a little bit of flooding as well. Heading to the north to Apollo Beach, we're looking at the water coming on shore, anywhere from about 1 to 3 feet, maybe up to 5 feet in some locations. And again, these are residential properties as we head up through this area, so a lot of residential properties are going to go underwater as we headed throughout the day, especially later on to Sunday evening in the Tampa Bay area. Same thing goes for coastal Gibsonton area. Heading up into McKay Bay, we're looking at the possibility for a pretty severe storm surge in this area as well. Here's Davis Island right here. All of Davis Island is in yellow, indicating the possibility that we could possibly see water come on shore for much of Davis Island, and that does include Tampa General Hospital as well. And in Harbor Island, we're looking at water coming on shore as well. So Harbor Island, Davis Island, we're looking at the possibility for a somewhat decent storm surge. Here's the Hillsborough River heading right up through the middle of Tampa, and we could see some flooding right along the Hillsborough River. Same thing goes, you head down through South Tampa and down to McDill. We're looking at storm surge flooding anywhere from about 1 foot to 3 feet, possibly up to about 5 feet for the immediate coastal locations in South Tampa. And that doesn't even mention freshwater flooding as well. One thing to mention about a lot of these locations is when it rains really hard, where do you think that water goes? Well, it goes in the storm drains along the sides of the road, and then that water empties out into the Gulf of Mexico. Well, or the bay in this case. Well, when the water is higher, it actually blocks some of that water from escaping into the bay. That means that freshwater flooding can be exacerbated by the higher water that's occurring in the bay. So just something to keep in mind, that not only are we looking at storm surge flooding, but we're also looking for the possibility of freshwater flooding as well. The Courtney Campbell right here, much of it could actually go underwater, as is indicated by the yellow color here. Parts of the Howard Franklin will be underwater, except for the elevated portion. Same thing goes, especially for the western part of the Gandy. So all three big bridges heading across Tampa Bay are going to be closed, especially later Sunday, and may not reopen until late on Monday. So it's definitely going to impact the traffic that occurs or any transportation across Tampa Bay area. We're looking at considerable storm surge flooding possible in town and country, even up into the Oldsmar and very southern West Chase area. Same things, you head down towards the western part of the bay. Safety Harbor could see some storm surge flooding that could be fairly extreme, maybe even up to 6 feet along the immediate coast. Heading farther south, you see that storm surge flooding again can go inland. Again, that water being pushed through these canals and rivers, so we could see storm surge flooding, again, not only right by the bay and the Gulf, but also along any type of rivers that are connected to the Gulf and the bay. Anybody east of, I'd say south of Gandy roughly, And east of 4th Avenue in the AE flood zone is looking at the possibility for some type of inundation, anywhere from your 1 foot to your 3 feet. Heading over to Shore Acres, we could see inundation of about 3, 4, maybe 5 feet. So the west coast of the bay is looking at some flooding as well. The flooding will be somewhat limited in St. Petersburg, but right down along Beach Drive, we could possibly see the water actually come onto the road areas. Same thing goes as you head down through the southern part of Pinellas County. The very southern tip of Pinellas County, only the very southern Pinellas Point area will see storm surge flooding, at least based on the current path. The roads leading to the Sunshine Skyway, we're going to see some inundation as well, so that bridge will be inaccessible as well. So no bridges will be in use late Sunday and even through the day Monday. So to get out of Pinellas County, you're going to need to drive to the north up through Oldsmar, and that might even be challenging as well. All right, so we're looking at Fort DeSoto here. Much of Fort DeSoto could go underwater. The same thing goes as you head up through Paso Grill. Here's Paso Grill right here, right along the beach. We could see upwards of 4 to 5 foot inundation. The yellow color representing about 3 feet. So the Don Cesar could actually see a good deal of water surrounding that property. Same thing as you head up towards Mad Beach and even into Treasure Island and St. John's Pass and into Reddington Shores. We're going to see the possibility for flooding, very possibly crossing the barrier island, coming all the way across from the Gulf into the Intracoastal Waterway. Same thing goes as you head up towards Indian Shores with some decent water right along the immediate coastline. Head up to Bel Air area and the storm surge not quite as bad, perhaps not actually crossing the barrier island, but the beach locations, perhaps a property right along the beach, could experience some storm surge flooding. Same thing goes for the Sand Key area. Here's Clearwater. Not as bad as our folks to the north, but right along the beach, we could see some storm surge flooding. Same thing goes all the way up into Caldesi Island. And here's Honeymoon Island, the Dunedin Causeway. We're looking at some decent storm surge flooding as well. Ozona, some of the businesses by the water could see some minor storm surge flooding. Same thing goes for Crystal Beach. As you head north to Fred Howard Park, that park could be inaccessible due to water crossing the roadway. Heading to the north, we do have some residential properties in western Pasco County that could be impacted by storm surge and the inundation on shore. And that includes very western Newport Richey, and that includes areas west, basically, of 19, where we could see that storm surge flooding, and even inland in the northern Elfers area, the area that's kind of known for being a little more prone to flooding, is going to see that possibility for more flooding from that water being pushed on shore. Here's the Hudson area. Again, if you're west of 19, you're looking at the possibility for some storm surge flooding of about 3 feet in the Hudson area. East of 19, and conditions improve rapidly. Heading up towards western Spring Hill, perhaps in the low-lying wetland areas, we could see some storm surge flooding. That includes Pine Island and areas that are in western Hernando County, even up into Citrus County. That includes Chassahowitzka, and Homosassa is going to experience some storm surge flooding as well, perhaps between 1 and 3 feet in the Homosassa area. And let's see, heading north into Citrus County, the Crystal River area and Yankeetown area, of course, can experience storm surge flooding anywhere from about 3 to about 5 feet. All right, I know I've spent a lot of time on storm surge flooding, but that's going to be a huge part of what causes the damage for a lot of people. And if that's your home, you would want to know what type of storm surge potential that is. I will say this is an experimental product that's come out by the National Hurricane Center, but what they do is use Esri data from a company called Esri, GIS data, to plot how low the water is, the land is, and then they can calculate based on the water rise what areas will be flooded. So based on the current forecast track, I think this is a pretty accurate representation of the areas that could succumb to water. Again, this is online. This is from the National Hurricane Center, nhc.noaa.gov, and you can access access this inundation graphic as well to zoom in to your neighborhood. All right, so I've shown you the storm surge potential. I've shown you how much rain you can expect, the timing. I've shown you the winds. I've shown you the path. I don't think there's really much else to go over right now here. I'll be back tomorrow as the storm is making landfall. And of course, I'm in St. Petersburg myself, so I will be reporting as long as I can about the conditions that are occurring with the storm as the center of circulation heads right over Southwest Florida and over Tampa Bay itself. All right, this is somewhat unprecedented as of recently. As I mentioned earlier, though, this storm has happened before. It happened with Hurricane Donna back in 1960. It happened with Hurricane King back in 1950. Hurricane King causing nearly $300 million worth of damage, and that's back when hardly anybody was living in Florida. So this storm has the potential to be a very destructive storm, not only from a storm surge standpoint, but from wind and power outages as well. All right, everybody, please stay safe as we head through the day tomorrow. I'll have more updates. If you need anything, feel free to zip me a line, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. All right, guys, have a great and safe night. If you're watching this on Sunday, have a very safe Sunday. Thank you for